Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to bring you my November TBR. So November's kind of a weird month because it's almost the end of the year, so my Goodreads reading challenge is almost up. The weather's starting to get a little bit colder, so it's almost time for those Christmassy, wintry reads. And this year, for the first time, I have a ton of books that I need to read in a timely fashion. So for this TBR, I'm going to split it into 3 categories. So I'm going to have proofs, review copies, and I'm gonna have books that I purchased that I need to read because otherwise I will have wasted a lot of money. So it's occurred to me that some people might not know the difference between proofs and ARCs and review copies and what the hell these words actually mean. So proofs are uncorrected, unfinished copies of books. Usually they'll have had at least one pass by a copy editor. So they're cleaned up, they look okay, the plot is all there, everything is good, but there's still going to be some typos, errors, things like that. ARCs or ARCs or review copies, whatever you want to call them, are usually finished copies or nearly finished copies of a book. So what you see inside of the book is probably what you're going to get. So they are sent out to bloggers, reviewers, whomever, for review, for publicity, to talk about the book, to kind of get the word out. If I got any of that wrong, please just let me know. So, first category is proofs. So I've got 4 books here. They actually all come out in January, here in the UK at least. So I'm reading these in November instead of maybe December because I just want to make sure that I stay on top of my reviewing and talking about these books and all of that good stuff. So before I get started, I just really quickly wanted to say a big thank you to the publicists who sent out these books and made these proofs and review copies available. So thanks to Gallant's, Chicken House Publishing, Ebury, HQ Young Adult, and Pan Macmillan. So big thank you to you guys. Really appreciate it. So first up, I have I Am Thunder by Muhammad Khan. This you will have seen in my October wrap-up video. I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to be a very important book, and so I really want to make sure that I get ahead of this. I'd really like to read this. It's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, I think. It's a contemporary YA book. However, I think that this is going to be a really important one to pay attention to. So next up is a book that I actually did not get in the post, which is how I get most of my books from publishers. This one actually I received at Yelk, and so this is The Fandom by Anna Day. From what I can tell, this book is about a group of friends who all go to a convention dressed up as their favorite characters, as you do, as I have done, and they basically get sucked into the world that they are a huge fan of. So this looks really fun. I have been seeing people who have actually already read this because Yelp was at the end of July and I still haven't picked this up yet. So a bunch of other people have, and the reviews have been really good from what I've seen so far. So this looks like one that me of like 4 or 5 years ago would have been completely obsessed with. I was going to New York Comic Con for a few years in a row. I was dressing up and it was just so much fun. I really enjoyed it. So I think that this is gonna be just like the perfect trip back a few years for me. So next up is one that I think is quite highly anticipated for a lot of people, and that is Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. So I talked about this again in my October haul because I was sent this early October, I believe. And like I said in that video, girl space pirates. I don't think that I need to say much more. And so the last proof that I have that I'm going to try to read in November is probably the one that I'm the most excited about. I received this a little while ago actually, but I've been waiting for the weather to turn a little bit colder because I feel like it's a very atmospheric book, and that is The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. I loved The Bear and the Nightingale, which came out in the UK in January, I think, of this year. And I kind of bought it on a whim. I bought it basically because it has a really nice cover. I would show you guys, but I'm currently lending it to my mother. And I just completely fell in love with that story. I really enjoyed it. I've been lending it out to people left and right, as seen by the fact that I don't actually have it with me. And I was not really sold on the idea of it being a trilogy. I thought it was just a standalone. I love the way The Bear and the Nightingale ended, so I was not hugely happy to hear that there was going to be a sequel. However, I've come around to it. I have heard wonderful things about this book from people who have already read it, and I am so looking forward to this. This is going to be high on my list of priorities for this month. So next up are, again, review copies. These are ARCs. I'm pretty sure these are all finished copies. If they're not, I'm sorry for misspeaking, but I'm pretty sure these are all finished. These should all be out by now, actually, so if you like the look of any of these books, you should be able to pick them up now. So first up is actually one of my current reads, and that is Blade Runner. This is actually a rejacketing, rebranding of the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. That is the book that Blade Runner is based on. So this is the actual story. This is not like a novelization or anything, which I thought it might have been. So I'm really enjoying this so far. It's very short. It's less than 200 pages. It's a little bit slow to start, but I have a feeling that's just kind of what his books are like. I've only read short stories of his so far. Something that I love about classic science fiction authors and classic science fiction is that you get to see the influences that these books that were written maybe the 50s or the 60s have on the genre today, whether it's in books or film or TV or whatever. So obviously Blade Runner was a hugely influential movie. This book was a hugely influential book, so I feel like I've been missing out by having not read it so far, so I'm really looking forward to reading it now. So next up, I have two books from the SF Masterworks series that Gollancz does. So the first is Ian Watson's The Embedding, and second is Brian Aldiss's Cryptozoic. So the thing that I really like about this particular series is that even though I don't actually know either of these books, I'd never heard of them before, I just know that they're going to be really good choices. I know that they're going to be really good reads. So the back of The Embedding says, in a quiet British research institute, Chris Soule is investigating a strange language whose grammar could open up the vast psychic potential of the human mind. And it goes on and on and on, which sounds really cool. So Cryptozoic looks like it's a different take on time travel. It's mind travel instead. So the human consciousness is expanded to the point that man can visit the past using a technique called mind traveling, which sounds really cool. So ever since I received this book in particular, I have seen Brian Aldiss's name everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and I feel kind of bad for having not known who he is, but classic science fiction is something that I really love but have not read a lot of. I don't know much about it, so I think that these two books in particular are going to be really interesting. So the next book that I have that I'm going to read is another one that, again, I talked about on my October TBR, so I'm not going to say much about it again. That is Austral by Paul McAuley. So this looks like it's kind of a dystopian set around climate change. Sounds really cool. It's not particularly long either. I was kind of surprised. I just think that it sounds like a really cool concept. I think it sounds really fascinating, and I am very much looking forward to seeing what this one is all about. So next up is This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada. From what I can tell, it's about sort of a virus that takes over mankind and wipes it out. It's a different kind of dystopia. So it actually looks a little bit like The Stand, which is one of my favorite books. It's by Stephen King. It's kind of his big epic 1,000-page novel. So it feels kind of like a YA version of The Stand, which I am 100% into. This looks really cool. I have seen a few reviews come out for this already, and they all look really positive, so I am so looking forward to this. I think this might be my next one after I finish my two current reads. So the last review copy that I have is The Crow Garden by Alison Littlewood. This looks really cool and really interesting. It seems like it's kind of Victorian Gothic stomping around on the moors, Mad Woman in the Attic kind of book, and it looks very cool. I don't know much about it, but I love this cover so much, and it sounds absolutely fascinating. I've seen a couple people talking about this and saying really good things about it. So last but not least are the books that I actually bought for myself that I'm trying to get through this month. So the first one is actually The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. This is one that I'm currently reading right now, and I am about 90 pages from the end, so not too long to go. It's really interesting so far. It's a quiet book, not really what I expected, but in a good way. So it's about Twyla, who lives in the castle in this particular kingdom, and she is the embodiment of the daughter of a god. Part of what comes with being the embodiment of this particular god's daughter is that she has poison in her skin, so she can kill anyone with just a touch. So she's their executioner, and she does not like it, but she lives in fear like everyone else does. It's got a very Cersei Lannister type queen who I love. Something that I have to say about this that I have struggled with a lot recently with young adult is that I'm actually really enjoying the romance in this. I believe the romance in this book, and I really am enjoying it a lot, even though I've kind of predicted where the plot is going. But the fact that I have predicted where the plot is going and I still am really enjoying it, I think says a lot, and I actually picked up the second book in this trilogy the other day, so I think that that also says a lot about how I feel about this particular book. So next up on my list is a book that I should have read in October, but I didn't end up getting a chance to, so I'm moving it to November, and that is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So this is basically a almost like a sci-fi young adult epistolary novel, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So basically these two characters live on a planet that is being bombarded and destroyed, and they just broke up recently. So now they have to kind of escape together and deal with each other. And it's all told in like transcripts, if that makes sense. So this is all like classified files and emails and instant messages and just all of this crazy stuff. So like, here, just, you can already see that this is an unusual book. I think it's safe to say. This seems to be one that people either love or hate. I think it's going to be one that I really like. So the last 4 books on my list are actually books that I did talk about very briefly in my October wrap-up. So these are all books that I bought last month, and I didn't actually talk about any of them because I ran out of time. That video was running 40 minutes long before I trimmed it down. So these are all books that I bought. I didn't talk about them at all before, so I'm going to talk about them a little bit now. So first up is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. So this is a book of poetry. I usually really don't enjoy poetry, but I've heard so many good things about this book that I really wanted to kind of just give it a shot, try something a little bit different. I think this is going to be something that is very, very quick for me to get through, and it is kind of illustrated. It's got like line illustrations, which I love. I've heard a lot of people really enjoying this, so we'll see. So next up is a book I feel like I talk about a lot that I haven't actually read yet, and that is The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi. So this is a young adult fantasy novel, and I've heard so many really amazing things about it. I don't really know much about it, except that it has a beautiful cover. It has a sequel, which also has a beautiful cover, and I think it's going to be a really nice sort of different book for me to read. I've just been looking for this for a really long time and wanting to read it, and I just hadn't been able to find it, so I ordered it, and now it's time for me to actually pick it up and stop talking about it without having read it. So the last 2 are actually books that I got because of sort of Halloween, October-y type recommendation videos, and I didn't read them in time for Halloween, but I am still really, really interested. So the first is The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. So this is a thriller about a girl named Mara Dyer, who would have guessed, and she wakes up with no memories, and I think she's going back trying to piece together what had happened, and she kind of starts to go a little bit off the rails. So this looks really, really cool. It has an amazing cover. I think this is a great cover, and this looks like something that's going to be a really quick and really thrilling read. So the very last book that I have to talk about today is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. So this is one that I've been seeing people talk about a lot, and I don't really know much about it, but it looks really amazing, and kind of like Illuminae, it also has this sort of unconventional format. From what I can tell, this book is about a journalist who becomes obsessed with a sort of cult horror filmmaker, and he has had repercussions because of his obsession with this particular filmmaker in the past, and the filmmaker's daughter dies of an apparent suicide when this book opens, and so that obsession reignites. And it looks really creepy and it looks really eerie, and I'm kind of getting like House of Leaves vibes from this in a way. I think that this looks really similar, and this looks really cool. Like there's even like bits of torn newspaper in here. I think this looks amazing. I think it looks really interesting, and it is a little bit of a doorstop in terms of books that I tend to read. It's almost 600 pages long, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be completely terrifying and horrifying and a really fast read. So that's it for my November TBR. As you may have pieced together from my October TBR, my October wrap-up, I am really bad at sticking with TBRs. However, I find that they're just a really good way of organizing my thoughts and figuring out what I want to read and what I want to prioritize, even though I end up reading tons of other things that have nothing to do with the TBR that I set at the beginning of the month. So if you have read any of these books and you have any that you think that I should prioritize, definitely let me know, because a fair few of them I don't know anything about, and I think that it would be really nice to hear what you guys have to say about some of these books. If you do a TBR video, then absolutely let me know, because I would love to see it. I would love to see what other people are reading, especially as we get closer to Christmas, which, as you may be able to tell, is my favorite time of year. It is November 8th, my Christmas tree is already up, so you can tell that I have some feelings about this time of year, and they're all positive. So that's it for today. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I am working towards getting more videos up every week, and I'm doing reading vlogs again, even though I was not so good about them for the past couple of weeks. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon.